Red buttercream hacks. Which one is the best, and can they save you money? Hi everyone, welcome to Weekend Cupcakes. My name is Susan, and in this video, I'll be testing 2 different hacks I found on social media, which are supposed to help you achieve that perfect, eye-catching red buttercream. The purpose of this video is to compare these 2 hacks to find out which one works best. I also want to find out if these hacks can actually make you save on food coloring. For this comparison, I'll be using a microwave oven, an immersion blender, red gel food coloring. I'm using Wilton's red no taste color, 2 bowls, one of which has to be microwave safe, 1 cup of buttercream in each bowl. I'm using American buttercream, but I've seen these hacks done with other types of buttercream as well. 2 spatulas, a 1/4 teaspoon measuring spoon, and, of course, my trusty plastic knife. So red is one of the most difficult colors to achieve with buttercream frosting. It's one of those things you have to get just right, otherwise you end up with some sort of pastel orange or pink. It's not turning red. Not at all. Still the same color. This is crazy. Originally, I wanted to conduct only one experiment by following Wilton's official directions. According to their website, to make a dark shade of red, you need to add a whopping 1 tablespoon of no-taste red for every 1 cup of buttercream. That's a lot of food coloring. In order to get a good base color, I started by adding a bit of pink to the buttercream. This is something I've seen many pros do on social media. Then I added the red and mixed with a spatula. I immediately got a fabulous, deep, vibrant red color. I then proceeded with the 2 hacks to see if they would make any difference. So one hack is to microwave the frosting for 10 seconds at a time and then mix it with a spatula. The other hack is to mix the frosting with an immersion blender until the color turns deep red. Neither technique made any difference in this case, because the red was already awesome from the get-go. So I decided to use this batch of frosting as the control for a second experiment. So for my second experiment, I tried using the least amount of coloring gel as I could, while trying to get the same red as the control. I measured out 1 cup of buttercream into each bowl. In order to have a worst-case scenario, I didn't start with a pink base this time. I added the red coloring to each bowl in 1/4 teaspoon increments. This was to ensure that I could control the intensity of the color and achieve the desired shade of red. After mixing the 2 bowls with a spatula, I put 2 samples of the buttercream aside so I could see how the colors would change as the experiment progressed. I then put the first bowl in the microwave for 10 seconds. After that, I mixed the frosting with a spatula. As you can see, the buttercream was a bit melted, but the color didn't change that much. The frosting was definitely softer though, so I put it in the fridge to bring it back to a stiffer consistency. Meanwhile, I used the immersion blender hack on the second bowl of frosting. On social media, no one ever mentions how much time they blend the frosting to get a vibrant red, so I decided to blend it for 2 minutes. Like with the microwave, the color didn't change much. I will say, this technique is very messy. That's something they never show you on social media either. It takes a lot of time to remove the frosting from the immersion blender. If you know a more efficient way of cleaning this up, let me know in the comments. While you're at it, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you're enjoying this video so far. Both buttercreams still looked more orange than red, so I proceeded to add another 1/4 teaspoon of red coloring. This made the 2 buttercreams look slightly darker. I continued by refrigerating then microwaving the first bowl again and mixing the second bowl again with the immersion blender. I then compared the 2 samples. They still weren't that red, so I added another 1/4 teaspoon of coloring, stirred the 2 bowls with the spatulas, microwaved the first bowl, blended the second bowl, and compared again. Now this is where it got interesting. After 3/4 teaspoons of red coloring and 3 cycles of hacking, the microwaved bowl was still quite orange and clumpy, while the immersion blender bowl seemed to be turning red and smooth. Comparing the two bowls to our control batch, we could see that the colors were not quite there yet. To be fair, the control batch was made about 2 hours earlier, so it did have time to get a bit darker. Without adding any more food coloring, I mixed the immersion blended buttercream for another 2 minutes to see if it would get any darker. And it did! It got almost as red as our control, so I chose to stop there with this bowl. Without adding any more coloring, I put the microwaved buttercream through 2 more cycles of refrigerating, microwaving, and mixing with the spatula, and the result was disappointing. It stayed orange, and it kept getting clumpier and clumpier. At this point, I realized that the frosting wouldn't get any darker just by microwaving it again, so I decided to add another 1/4 teaspoon of red gel food coloring, mixed with a spatula, and then put it in the fridge. Then I microwaved it for 10 seconds. Again. Let's look at the samples we have so far. The immersion blender sample is on the left and the microwave sample is on the right. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of no-taste red per 1 cup of frosting. I mixed this batch for 2 minutes with the immersion blender and microwaved this batch for 10 seconds. I added another 1/4 teaspoon of red coloring to each batch. I mixed for 2 minutes and microwaved for 10 seconds and then added another 1/4 teaspoon of coloring. I mixed for 2 minutes and microwaved for 10 seconds. As you can see, microwaving it made it very liquidy. I mixed it again for 2 minutes with the immersion blender, which gave a satisfying red. I put the microwaved batch through 2 more cycles of refrigerating and microwaving for 10 seconds. I then added another 1/4 teaspoon of red gel food coloring and microwaved it for another 10 seconds. And this was the result. At this point, I gave up on the microwave buttercream. This batch now had a whole teaspoon of red gel food coloring, and the color hadn't changed on the last 4 samples. I didn't want to add any more color. Instead, I used the immersion blender on it to see if it would get any darker. After mixing with the immersion blender for just 1 minute, the frosting finally turned a dark red, even more so than the immersion blender batch. To be fair though, the blended batch had 1 less 1/4 teaspoon of red coloring in it. So I ended up adding a final 1/4 teaspoon of red to the immersion blender batch and then mixed one last time so that both buttercreams would look the same. In the end, the immersion blender technique produced a dark red and used 2/3 less gel food coloring than the recommended amount. Therefore, we can say with confidence that this hack will save you money. Although it's quite messy, it'll give you the quickest result, the most vibrant color, and the best buttercream texture. We cannot say the same about the microwave technique. By itself, it may be easier and cleaner, but in our experiment, the color and texture both fell short. In fact, we needed to mix the buttercream with an immersion blender to make it vibrant and smooth, which kind of defeats the purpose. My verdict? Immersion blender for the win. Are you wondering what I did with all that red frosting? Then you'll definitely want to watch this next video. Thanks for watching and happy baking! And my arm is hurting already.